WFLA. The following is a paid program. The views expressed are those of the host and callers and not those of News Radio 1025, its management, or advertisers. Welcome to Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark, the show that takes you behind the law and answers all your legal questions. The lines are open for you locally at 407-674-1025 or toll free from anywhere, 855-545-1025. Now, here's your host attorney, Justin Clark.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday night. It's a wonderful holiday weekend. I'm sure you're on the road in traffic, trying to get home or trying to get to where you're headed for this unbelievable weekend in Central Florida. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend and certainly have a safe holiday weekend. Hope you don't have to work on Monday. Nice 3-day weekend. I'm back here in the studio live after a little break. Tom Benson is with me as always. Tom, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Looking forward to the weekend. Got my hamburgers, my hot dogs, and my steaks all lined up, ready to go.
And you know, when it comes to holiday weekends, a lot of times alcohol is involved.
Oh.
And we're going to do a show tonight about all things DUI.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a bad 3 letters. And of course, we never recommend drinking and driving. But, you know, what if you were to be caught drinking and driving or get charged with DUI? We're going to answer all of those questions tonight. Again, my name is Justin Clark. If you want to call us, go ahead, 321-282-1055. You can go to the website, www.youhavepower.com. That is youhavepower.com. Shoot me an email directly with all of your questions, jclark@youhavepower.com. It goes directly to me. There is no gatekeeper. I promise I will answer your questions. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @ATTY Justin Clark, I will follow you back. Feel free to ask me any question on there. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, 321-282-1055 on a fantastic holiday weekend. I'm sorry about the traffic, but just stay calm. You'll make it home. You'll get where you're going, I promise.
Everybody's revved up, ready to go, and before you know it, the 3 days will be over.
Hey, you got it.
Let's not rush it.
Well, let's not think about Tuesday. You're such a downer, Tom. You're already thinking about Tuesday. Right? Can you please
right.
Don't burst my bubble.
We'll put it on hold.
I'm telling you, you just said Tuesday, and now I'm all of a sudden not feeling great. But anyway, I'm happy to welcome a special guest into the studio tonight. He's a lawyer at my firm. He focuses on criminal defense work, and his name is Steve Haleen. Steve, welcome to the show, big boy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Justin.
First of all, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not. He's also an Auburn football player back in his younger days. Can you believe that?
He's big, yeah.
Well, as he describes to me, I played in high school and I practiced a lot in college.
That's right.
we all know that feeling, huh?
Well, I'm sure there's two different worlds from high school to college ball.
And I'm sure. My cousin is the surgeon for University of Tennessee, and he played at Mississippi State as a receiver.
Yeah.
But, you know, he didn't play, except on senior night.
Yeah, you guys.
He got in for a second, I think. And I don't want you to answer this question yet, but this is the question that everyone always asks me when they come see me. They're, "Oh, Justin, you're a lawyer. What do I do? Do I blow or do I not blow?" That is the question, right?
Yes.
Blow or not blow. If you get pulled over and they say, you know, I smell the odor of alcohol, do you blow or do you not blow? And I want you to stick around because we are going to get Steve's opinion on that, and you'll hear my opinion as well, because I think it's a question that we've all thought, right? But first, Steve, here's what I want to know. What is a DUI? I mean, I think we all know what DUI is. You get pulled over, you're drunk. But what is a DUI really in the legal sense?
Okay. So DUI is being in actual physical control of an operable motor vehicle on the roadways in the state of Florida while your normal faculties are impaired.
Okay. So let's break that down really quickly. So operable vehicle, what is that? I mean, what if I'm on my four-wheeler?
That would be a DUI.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right, another question. What if I am drunk in the parking lot of my favorite local bar, asleep in the back seat? Now, surely that's not a DUI.
That could possibly be a DUI.
How?
Yes, you could be charged with it, I should say.
Is that right? How is that? What are the terms? What is the definition of DUI then? What are they looking for? What are the elements?
All right, so if the vehicle is operable, if it can operate, and you are in actual physical control, and the actual physical control would mean that anything within your wingspan, all right, so you stretch your arms out. If it's within your wingspan to control it, then it would be considered potentially a DUI.
So in other words, if you're sitting in the driver's seat, you're in trouble.
Even in the back seat.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I knew a guy who got charged with DUI who was asleep in his vehicle in his own driveway.
So a driveway is open to the public, and therefore it's considered a roadway in the state of Florida.
Wow.
So what if the ignition is not on? I mean, the car is off. I'm just passed out drunk in the back seat.
But you could turn the ignition on.
Really?
And because of that, it is an operable motor vehicle.
That's unbelievable to me. That blows my mind. You're listening to Behind the Law with Justin Clark here, talking about DUIs on this holiday weekend, 321-282-1055. The website is www.youhavepower.com. Talk about the legal limit. Everyone always says, oh, yeah, I blew a .08. What does this really mean, blowing a .08? I don't quite understand this.
So that is a common misconception about a legal limit. In the state of Florida, there is no such thing as a legal limit. What it is a legal presumption. If you provide a breath sample and that sample comes back and registers a .08 or higher, you are legally presumed to be impaired, either by alcohol or whatever else. If your sample comes back and it's below a .05 or below, then you are legally presumed unimpaired. And then the state has to somehow rebut that presumption of unimpairment. The way they would normally do it is by trying to get a urine sample and testing the urine to determine whether or not there is trace elements of drugs that may have impaired the driver. If you're between an 05 and 08, there is no presumption in either direction, and in any event, even if you provide a breath sample and it comes back a .000, you are still under arrest. In fact, while you're sitting there at the breath center, you're handcuffed and you're under arrest. So it doesn't matter what your sample is, you're already under arrest for the crime of driving under the influence.
Okay, I understand it. And again, we're going to get to the blow or not to blow question here later on in the show. But, I've seen enough Cops episodes, I think, at this time where I understand you get pulled over, the cop says, get out, touch your nose, alphabet backwards, whatever they say, and they're like, blow into this little machine. Is that how it really works? I mean, you blow in this machine on the side of the road as traffic is driving by?
Not in Florida.
Okay.
In Florida,
they
don't use the roadside meter in Florida. In Florida, they actually will transport you. They place you under arrest. This is all after they've done the field sobriety exercises. So that's what you talked about before, the alphabet test or the walk and turn or the touching your finger to your nose or standing on one foot.
All right, let's talk about that then first, and then let's get to the process for actually blowing in this machine.
Sure.
Do they really say do your alphabet backwards?
I haven't heard it backwards.
Okay.
That's called the Romberg test. And they actually just have you recite the alphabet without singing it.
Okay.
And so they want to see if you can go from A to Z without actually singing. That's actually not used very very often.
No.
There are some officers that use that, but really the three big ones are the walk and turn, which they'll take a piece of tape or use a line that's on the roadway already, and you walk 9 steps down, do a series of small steps to turn, and then 9 steps back up, and you're going heel to toe, and they want to see if you fall off, and you can't use your arms to steady yourself. So they just want to see if you fall off, and they track all the times that you fall off.
Do I have to do these field sobriety tests?
You don't have to do anything.
Okay. Well,
You
tell
can
me about
refuse.
that. So let's go through it. So officer pulls you over. He says it smells like booze in your car, right? And get out and walk a straight line or whatever. You can say no.
You can.
Okay.
You can refuse to do the field sobriety exercises.
And what happens if you say, not going to happen tonight?
The officer has to make a decision. If his or her observation at that point, which would be the glassy eyes and red bloodshot glassy eyes, the odor of alcohol, and the slurred speech, these are the common ones, and then any driving pattern that they may associate with all of that to determine that someone might be impaired, is that enough for the officer to decide, I'm going to place you under arrest for the crime of driving under the influence?
Okay. Okay. Let's say he or she does. Now they are going to put us in the back of their car or whatever and take us where? What happens after that?
At that point, they're going to transport you to the breath center. This is assuming it's Orange County. The breath center's on Cayley. Each county has their own breath center, And so they'll transport you to the breath center, and at that point, they'll place you in front of the machine, the intoxilizer, and they'll ask you to submit to the breath test. And so you have the option at that point to either blow into the machine or you can refuse that as well. Now, there are certain things they have to do. If you're going to blow into the machine, there are certain things they have to do. There's an observation period that they have to follow prior to you actually providing the breath sample, but you're given an option at that point to either provide the breath sample or not.
All right, so I mean, this breath thing could really happen hours after you were actually pulled over.
It
huh?
oftentimes is many hours
Now,
after you're pulled over.
is that good or bad for someone? I mean, is the blood alcohol content going up or down at that point?
Well, it could be either, depending upon
When you were boozing?
correct.
Oh.
And how much?
And how much, how big you are, how much you've had to eat.
How many French fries? Yeah, the
Right.
French fries.
Right. There are many factors that go into what your alcohol level is going to be at the time that you're tested.
All right, so officer puts you in the back of the car and takes you down to the, what is it, breath
Breath
center?
center.
So you have a whole center for this. I mean, it must be a good moneymaker, I guess, no? I mean, it must be a good moneymaker for the state, isn't it?
Well, I think the criminal justice system in general is a great moneymaker for the state.
All right, so we get in the back of the patrol car. They're like, all right, we're heading down to the breath center on Cayley, which I didn't know there was a breath center, honestly. Did you know that, Tom?
I've heard of bad breath, but no, I've never heard of the breath center.
So we go to the breath center. All right, they check you in. Is this like getting booked? Is it like when you go to jail and you have to get booked and go through that whole process?
It's prior to that. So you
Okay.
go to the breath center first,
All right.
and then after you leave the breath center, they take you down to central booking.
Could you refuse to do it until you talk to an attorney?
Well, you can ask for that, but what they'll do is say it's a refusal. So they won't give you the opportunity to speak to an attorney. They'll just say, nope, it's a refusal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's a good defense that I wanted to consult with an attorney prior to doing it, and they wouldn't allow me to.
All right.
Got it. So we get down to the breath center. All right, they check you in or whatever they do down at the breath center. What happens next? I mean, do you immediately go to this machine and start blowing it?
No, they have to observe you for 20 minutes. And the reason they have to do that is to make sure that you don't burp, make sure you don't hiccup, make sure you don't vomit, because all of that would cause a higher concentration of alcohol in your mouth, which when you push that breath into the machine would become an inaccurate level or an inaccurate sample. So the breath tech is supposed to observe you for those 20 minutes, and if you do any of those things, then they're supposed to start over again.
The 20 minutes over again.
Correct.
So a lot of burping going on at the breath center. You know what I mean? I guess you would want to burp a lot because then the clock starts again, and you'd hope that the level goes down.
That's assuming that they're actually following that,
Oh,
following the guidelines.
Okay.
And I doubt that they do.
Yeah.
All right. So
Most of the time, they're in there filling out all the paperwork, and they're not even looking.
They're not
at
looking
the
at you. They're not observing you. I see. I guess you could say I said that I burped, and they didn't listen to me. I mean, these are all defenses. I mean, obviously, but first of all, I want to be very clear. I don't support or condone drinking and driving one bit, but there is a lot of weird stuff that goes on in the justice system, especially in a town that's pretty big like Orlando. A lot of people want to make a name for themselves, whether it's in the state attorney's office or whether it's a police officer want to arrest a high-profile person. And everything that they say is not necessarily always true.
Plus, there's also a lot of tourists in this area who, don't know the laws at all in Florida, perhaps because they're out of state, from out of state.
It is a great money maker, and the reason why we have a justice system is to give defense to people who could be railroaded in a situation like this. But I want to make it clear here on Behind the Law, we don't recommend drinking and driving by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to fill you in on what your rights are and exactly what it's like. But obviously the biggest piece of advice I can give you is don't drink and drive.
Absolutely.
And you are listening to Behind the Law with Justin Clark right here on News Radio 102.5, 321-282-1055, website www.youhavepower.com. That is youhavepower.com. On the other side of the glass pushing the buttons, as always, is Tom Benson. And my special guest to my left is one of the lawyers in my firm, Steve Haleen. Steve, back to the breath center. Okay. So they waited 20 minutes, observed you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens now?
If you're going to take the test, they will stick the tube in your mouth, and they'll tell you it's a timed exercise, timed test, and they'll make you blow. the machine registers the amount of force that you're pushing your air into it, and so it makes an audible noise. And the breath tech is telling you, keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. Eventually, it will register that sample, and then it waits 2 minutes, and then you have to provide a second sample. And again, the machine's registering the force with which you're blowing into it. You get the audible tone. When you get that tone, the breath tech again is telling you keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing, until it's gotten enough of a sample that it will register it. If you choose not to take the test, then at that point they will deem it a refusal, and at that point they put you in the back of the car and transport you to central booking.
Okay. So you can refuse.
You can refuse.
You can refuse. Now, talk to me about, from a legal perspective, what that refusal means.
So I've always been of the opinion that the refusal, you're not providing evidence to the state attorney to use against you in a criminal case. But there's also a secondary penalty that's occurring, or a secondary function that's occurring with every DUI. You've got the criminal case going on, but you also have an administrative part going on as well through the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. As you all know, I'm sure we've heard before that driving is a privilege, and when you accept your driver's license, you also are accepting to take any kind of test to determine whether or not you are impaired, whether that be a breath test, blood test, or urine test. So, in fact, it's written on your driver's license at the bottom. You implicitly consent to one of those tests. So if you refuse to take the breath test, then the Department of Highway Safety is going to suspend your driving privilege for 6 months.
Just no matter what.
No matter
You're
what.
Done for 6 months.
On the refusal.
Okay.
And in the state of Florida, if you have refused once before and you refuse a second time, it is a criminal case. There's a criminal charge for refusing to submit to a breath test. And the second refusal results in a suspension of your driver's license for 18 months.
All right, so I refuse.
Through the DMV.
So I refuse, and automatically 6 months, no driving. Okay, fine. I understand that. And that's through the administrative DMV type thing.
Correct. And actually, it's not truly a full 6 month suspension, because there's a 30-day, what we call a hard suspension, meaning you absolutely can't drive. But after those 30 days, then should you qualify, you could get what most people call a hardship license or a business purpose only license. So you could at least drive to work and back, or you could drive to school if you're a student.
And do they liberally give those out if you have a job or you're in school?
They would, yeah.
Okay.
If you qualify for it, they would.
So that's good. So now at least I can get to work, right?
Correct.
So I've refused the breathalyzer test. They sent me to the breath center, whatever it's called, and I said no. I don't trust this process. I'm not going to blow in this thing. They're like, okay, no problem. Send you down to booking, right?
Correct.
And now they're going to charge you with DUI because the officer says, you were stumbling around or whatever. So now you have a DUI case against you. But what proof do they have at this point then?
Well, at that point, what they've got is just the officer's observations.
Huh.
So the officer would testify that your eyes were red, bloodshot, glassy, that you had an odor of alcohol on or about your breath, that you had slurred speech, and then whatever driving pattern that the officer combines with all of that to determine that you're potentially impaired.
So it's really the officer versus your word at this point and their
Correct.
observations. But now how about this? We've seen all of these video cameras in these cars now, in these police cars, right? I think they all have video cameras at this point. Do they not, Tom?
I would think the vehicles do. Body cams, no. But police vehicles, yes.
So I'm on trial for DUI. And it's the officer saying I was stumbling around, smelled like booze, whatever. Is the video admissible in court against me?
It is.
Okay. So they often, I imagine, play that video to try to get the jury to say, yeah, that guy looks really drunk.
That's correct. And, that's the benefit of having an attorney, is that we would get that video prior to any trial. So we would have the opportunity to view that. And assuming you looked really bad on that video, that's something that you would take into account before deciding whether or not you wanted to take that risk of going to trial.
Got it.
Does there have to be probable cause before they pull you over or stop you?
There's two levels. Either probable cause that an infraction has occurred, so speeding, Failure to maintain a single lane is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Or reasonable suspicion, which is a much lower standard. It's the easiest standard for law enforcement to get to. Reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred, is occurring, or is about to occur. And reasonable suspicion, the officer has to be able to articulate what it is that gave him that thinking or that belief that something is happening. It can't just be, they just pulled out of the bar.
Well, I was going to ask you that. What if they're on a stakeout? They see you walk out of a bar, get in a car, and drive off.
Not enough.
Oh, okay.
Now, for probable cause, that might be enough. If they fail to maintain the single lane, that's an actual infraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they violated that infraction, then the officer can stop somebody based on that. And then once the officer gets to the driver's window, if they observe certain other things like the red, glassy, bloodshot eyes, the odor of alcohol, the slurred speech, you can combine all of that, and then that would give them the probable cause to, at that point, investigate the DUI.
All right. Say you have not been drinking. You're driving down a highway or roadway. You approach a checkpoint, and you just don't want to go through the hassle of stopping and all that, and you turn off and go in a different direction. Why can they come after you?
They actually are not supposed to. You know, one of the requirements for every checkpoint, you may know, they have to advertise it. I don't know if your station advertises the DUI checkpoints.
I do not know about that. Please.
They have to advertise checkpoints to let the general public know that there's going to be a checkpoint at this
intersection or whatever. Yeah.
Well, they probably advertise it on stations much less powerful than this one, Tom.
It's probably in the paper in the small fine print somewhere, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
But they also have to provide an escape route so that if you don't want to go through it, then you don't have to. So you'll never see a law enforcement officer say, the reason why I pulled this person over was because I noticed that they utilized the escape route. What they'll do is come up with something else.
Yeah.
They failed to maintain a single lane. He was speeding. He ran a red light. We
went through a medium strip, you know.
The lights on his tag weren't illuminated. They'll come up with anything.
Is that statewide or countywide?
Statewide.
State, okay.
All right, so a question again. So let's just say that it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the officers know this one particular bar is notorious for everyone just getting sloshed, right? So they just sit outside the bar and wait on people to leave at 2:30 in the morning, knowing they're probably going to be drinking. And he pulls you over because I know that's the kind of spot everyone gets drunk a lot. Is that good enough to pull me over?
Well,
I'm staying in the lanes. Nothing's wrong with my car. Pulling me over just because I left that bar.
So in your scenario, no, that's not enough. But I will tell you in reality, that's exactly how the vast majority of these DUIs happen, is they do get pulled over shortly after leaving a bar. But the officers they're not going to say, that's the reason why I pulled over this driver,
right,
is because they just left the bar. They'll always come up with something. They know, the officers know, they've lost enough motions to suppress. They know that I need to have something that I can articulate. He failed to maintain a single lane. That's the most common reason why people get pulled over, is they failed to maintain a single lane.
Now, have you ever suspected that an officer might have been lying about you getting out of the lines leaving this bar?
Well, I have, yes, but it's very difficult to prove that.
So you go to trial, and they say, I saw the guy outside of the yellow line, and that's why I pulled him over, and now it's your job to basically show that did not happen.
Correct.
And that's very hard to do.
Well, the video cameras, the dashboard cameras are helping out a lot with that now, because the dashboard cameras will show us exactly what the officer saw. A lot of times, though, the officers don't turn that on until the moment they want to.
And they can do that? They can turn it on whenever they want?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a trial, then, where you have the suspicion that someone was just pulled over strictly because they were leaving a certain drinking establishment and there was no video camera conveniently? Yeah.
I have had that case, yes.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I hope everyone sticks around. By the way, happy holiday weekend. It's a long, fantastic 3-day weekend. Hope you don't have to work on Monday. We've got a lot of show ahead. If you want to call us, it's 321-282-1055. My name is Justin Clark. The website, www.youhavepower.com. That is youhavepower.com. We're going to answer this question when we get back, and the question is, if you get pulled over, to blow or not to blow? Right on the other side of this break. Be right back.
latest news and a place to talk about it. News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
In the WFLA News Center, I'm Chris Curley. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. News brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. Federal investigators are looking into the first self-driving car death in the U.S., happening in Florida in a Tesla Model S. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says 40-year-old Joshua Brown of Ohio was using the autopilot when the car collided with a tractor-trailer in May in Williston in the Big Bend area of the state. A federal judge in Tallahassee issues an injunction blocking 3 key provisions in Florida's newest abortion law. It would have cut off funding for any groups providing abortions, but Planned Parenthood says thousands of Floridians rely on them for STD exams, cancer screenings, birth control, and basic health care. This means Planned Parenthood is back in business until there's a final ruling on Florida's new abortion law. All day, every day, news, weather, and traffic on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. I'm Chris Curley.
Heavy traffic still northbound on the 417 between Osceola Parkway and John Young Parkway, and we're seeing delays south on Florida's Turnpike between OBT and Osceola Parkway. Eastbound I-4 stop and go from US 192 to State Road 535, as well as between State Road 46 and St. John's River Bridge. Watch for westbound delays between Universal Boulevard and Central Florida Parkway, as well as between World Drive and Osceola Polk Line Road. If you see traffic problems, call the Safe Touch Security Tip Line at 866-676-8477 from the Traffic Center on Page Carrera.
This report is brought to you by Discount Tire. Come by Discount Tire this Friday and Saturday for sparkling Independence Day savings. Get up to $320 when you buy select tire and wheel packages with your Discount Tire credit card. Your low-price journey starts here. Thank you, Discount Tire.
Here's your News Radio 102.5 exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Friday night, a shower or a thunderstorm seen in a few spots early, followed by mainly cloudy skies late. Friday night's low 73 to 76. Partly sunny skies Saturday with a shower or a thunderstorm in spots in the morning hours, followed by a couple thunderstorms into the afternoon hours. Saturday's high 88 to 92. A couple thunderstorms Sunday, high 91 to 94. News, weather, and traffic every 10 minutes in the morning. I'm Michael Stack, News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
This report is brought to you by KFC. Hungry? Stop into KFC today for an extra crispy $20 fill-up. It's freshly double-breaded crunch, laughs in the face of quieter foods. KFC, it's finger-licking good. At participating KFCs, prices may vary. Tax and substitutions extra.
Keeping you ahead of the storm with Operation Storm Watch with the statewide resources of the Florida News Network, AccuWeather, and the National Hurricane Center. News Radio 102.5 will keep you up to date on the tropics when the next storm rears its ugly head. Operation Storm Watch, only on News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Wall Street closed out the week with an up session. The Dow Jones Industrials rose 19 points to 17,949. The Nasdaq also closed 19 points higher, while the S&P 500 added 4. The June sales reports from the automakers were mixed. Numbers from General Motors, Fiat, Chrysler, and Honda fell short of estimates. Nissan and Ford topped analyst projections. Kelley Blue Book says average new car prices last month were up 2%, or $655 from June of last year. It appears the incomes of households outside the top 1% have begun to improve 7 years after the end of the Great Recession. That's according to research by a University of California economics professor. But the professor says the average income for the top 1% rose nearly 8% in 2015, so there was a further widening of the income gap in the United States. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
When you're a kid, monsters live under your bed. When you're a grown-up, monsters come in the mail. You know, bills. But by refinancing your mortgage with Quicken Loans, you could save hundreds of dollars each month. Money you can use to shrink those monstrous bills down to a size that's not nearly as scary. To learn how, call 800-QUICKEN today or visit us online at QuickenLoans.com. Here's one more thing that can help put your mind at ease. For 6 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction. And for the second year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in mortgage servicing. Call us at 800-QUICKEN and buy in. Again, that number is 800-QUICKEN. Quicken Loans. Home buy, refi, power. Visit jdpower.com for award information. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Good tech support isn't just for big companies. IT services from Bright House Networks Business Solutions fits the needs and budget of your small business. Our business internet, firewall, help desk, and server support cover your most important IT needs. That's all from one trusted provider and with no annual contract. Call 877-424-9246 or visit brighthouse.com/business. Some restrictions apply. Serviceable areas only. Service provided at the discretion of Bright House Networks.
WFLA is available everywhere you want to listen on our free iHeartRadio app. Download it now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Happy holiday weekend. You're with Justin Clark right here on News Radio 102.5. We're talking DUIs tonight with attorney Stephen Halim. If you have any questions, 321-282-1055. The website, www.youhavepower.com, youhavepower.com. I'm on Twitter at ATTY Justin Clark. If you want to follow me there, you'll join one of, I don't know, maybe 50 people following me on Twitter. I got to get better with this, Tom.
Well, that's more than you had 6 months ago.
I got to focus.
That's right.
Got to focus on this Twitter. I'm just too busy, man.
Well, you need to, make more tweets.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I need to tweet more.
Yeah.
I hate even talking about it. I feel like a loser, but I like doing it. But I just don't have time. But please do follow me and get me more involved. Follow me, and then I'll look at my phone. I'll see you follow me, and then I'll tweet. It'll be fun. Let's do that. All right, so as promised before, in the first half hour on the show, I said that we're going to ask Steve to blow or not to blow. So you get pulled over, sent down to the drunk tank, whatever they call it. What is it called?
The breath center.
The breath center. The drunk tank.
That's where they put you after the breath center.
Oh, yeah. They're going to say, okay, they have to observe you for 20 minutes, and they're going to make you blow in this little machine. Just like on Cops, but it's not on the side of the road like on Cops. Now, do I blow or do I not to blow? What do you think? What would you do, Steve?
Generally, my answer to that is no, you should not. And the reason why is because at this point, you're already under arrest. You're already going to jail. All you're doing is giving evidence to be used against you in the criminal case. And so I would generally say no.
So let me try to diagnose this for a second. So if I'm already going to jail no matter what. So even if I don't blow, I'm going to jail for the night.
Correct.
Going to the drunk tank for the night. But now when they actually go to trial on this DUI case, if you do blow and you blow over, they have that against you and the evidence that the cop's going to put on saying that your eyes were glassy, you smelled of alcohol, but that they could also use the numbers that they did on the blow machine or whatever.
Correct.
However, if you don't blow in this machine, it's really just the officer testifying that you were stumbling around, glossy eyes or whatever. I mean, is that really what it breaks down to?
That's exactly what it breaks
down to.
So
we're giving them evidence if you blow in the little machine. Is it really this little machine that someone holds up, or is it more like a massive thing?
It's a big machine.
Yeah.
It's when you're there at the breath center. It's a big machine, the size of one of the old IBM style computers, and it's got a tube that comes out of it.
Now, do they change the tube between each person, each drunk guy? I hope
they change the mouthpiece.
I hope so. I was thinking about that. I can see this line of people just grabbing the same mouthpiece here.
If you refuse,
can you say it's because they didn't change the tube? Or the mouthpiece?
I've never tried that, but that might be a good defense.
If you do refuse, does that make the penalties stiffer?
No, you'll definitely get the administrative suspension through the DMV for 6 months, and then you can still be tried with the refusal. It's just the only evidence that they'll have against you would be the officer's observations and any admissions that you may have made. So if you tell the officer, "Oh yeah, I've had," we call it the proverbial 2 drinks. No one ever says I only had 1 because that's not enough. And no one ever says that they had 3 because that's too many. So everyone always says, "Oh, I've only had 2 drinks."
We had a couple. Is that what they say?
A couple, yeah.
Had a couple.
Yeah.
No.
And that any admission that you make will come in against you.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that would be the evidence that the state would have, and then the state would attempt to seek the conviction based off of that.
How long does a DUI trial typically last? I mean, is this like a 2-day thing, or is this an hour and a half?
It depends. Every trial is different. Some of them, it'll take more than an hour and a half because you got to go through jury selection and then openings and closings. It could be a full day. Some of them might take longer than that, depending upon how many witnesses there are.
Any truth to the urban legend that if the officer doesn't show up, you're off scot-free?
To some degree. The state can ask for a continuance, and sometimes the judges will grant that. Sometimes the judges won't. The calendar is purely within the judge's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
So if the officer doesn't appear for some reason and the state asks for a continuance, depending upon which judge you have, the judge may grant it. Sometimes the judge will say no, and then you, in fact, get off scot-free.
The procedures that you've described tonight or on the show so far, are they the same as if you had priors?
So DUI is an enhanceable penalty. So for every one that you get, it does change the penalties. If you get a second within 5 years, it's still a misdemeanor, but it would be the penalties are far more enhanced. A third within 10 years becomes a felony, and it's a 10-year revocation of your driver's license. And a fourth overall, regardless of the amount of time in between them, is a felony as well, which would result in a lifetime revocation of your driver's license.
Compared to other states, is Florida above average or below average or average as far as enforcement of DUIs?
I think that they're all very similar because the National Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles and Department of Transportation has mandated a lot of uniformity with all the states, and they will threaten taking away federal funding for roadways if you don't comply with what they want. In fact, Louisiana used to have the drinking age was 18.
Yeah.
And they forced Louisiana to raise drinking age to 21 for that very purpose.
Yeah. I can remember when I was in Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. We used to drive up to New York State, which legal drinking was 18 at the time. And we'd drive an hour and a half up, an hour and a half back, but we would never drive drinking. We would get it for a party or something.
Were you on a cart or was that a car?
Just a car.
I remember a lot of carts up in Pennsylvania, those parts of Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's say you will not agree to blow in the machine. Now, I'm scared of needles, right? My insurance guy yells at me because I overpay for my life insurance because I don't want the needle coming into my office to draw my blood to do the life insurance. I'm really that scared. Now, can the state, if I refuse to blow in the machine, make me go get a blood sample taken?
The only instances where they can force you or compel you to give them blood is if there is great bodily injury to a person, whether that be you or another person. So if you're in an accident, one-car accident, and there's great bodily injury to you, then they can force a blood draw.
All right, so let's say I get injured in the accident. They take me to the hospital. I'm passed out. The doctors draw blood to see what's wrong with me or whatever. Now, can the officers just go in and say, "Ooh, doc, let me get a little bit of that blood"? Is that how it works?
Nope. They actually cannot use blood that was drawn for medical purposes.
Oh.
They actually have to have a specific blood draw that's done just for the testing purposes. So the reason why that becomes important is if your blood wasn't drawn properly for testing purposes and you've left the hospital already, then they can't get the blood from. They'll have to actually get a court order to force you to go back to the hospital to get the blood drawn.
And if you say no to a blood being drawn because of religious reasons, is that a refusal?
Well, you can't refuse the blood draw. They'll do it by force if they have to.
Oh,
at
wow.
that point, yeah. If there's a court order, then they'll get it.
So they will just tie you down and take the blood. They have to.
Yeah.
Huh? Interesting. How often are those cases pretty prevalent around here? Are there a lot of these vehicular homicide or great bodily injury type DUI cases?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of them, but there are vehicular homicide cases, or there are a lot of DUI with great bodily injury cases, and that's when you would deal with blood. And actually, blood is probably the most accurate way to determine somebody's alcohol level. Whereas, the breath, you're relying on a machine to translate the breath that goes into the machine. It uses some kind of spectral analysis where there's a wheel inside there that has different panels of different color and a light that shines on that, and the breath goes in and gets transferred into light waves, and there's a mathematical formula that translates the light waves into an amount that comes out as what your breath alcohol is. So you're relying on a lot of science for that. Whereas when you draw the blood, you're just testing the actual alcohol amount in the blood. So it's far more accurate, but it's also the one that they're least likely to do. Even if you ask for it, they won't do it just because you've requested it.
How complicated do things get if your employer finds out you've been arrested for a DUI? Can they fire you or put you on some kind of restriction from driving company vehicles?
Well, I would suspect yes, because now you're dealing with their insurance policy. Florida's an at-will state anyway, and so the employer can terminate you at their will, just like an employee can walk out at any time in Florida. So I wouldn't think that there are any restrictions on an employer having a reaction to somebody picking up a DUI, because you're also putting them at risk. If you are somebody who winds up getting drunk and driving their vehicle, and you get into an accident and kill someone, they're going to come after the employer because you're operating their vehicle. Sure.
And I'm sure that if your employer can require you in order to get the job to have a clean driving record also.
I'm sure that for FedEx and UPS, I'm sure they do that, and anyone where you're driving a vehicle regularly.
We have it here in the building.
I would think so.
For iHeartMedia, yeah.
And you are listening to Behind the Law with me, Justin Clark, right here on News Radio 102.5, 321-282-1055 for any legal question that you have, or go to the website, www.youhavepower.com. That is youhavepower.com. We're talking DUIs on a holiday weekend because, let's be honest, the DUIs go up substantially on these holidays, whether it's New Year's or Memorial Day, Labor Day, July 4th. The police are out there looking for you. That's all there is to it, because there are more parties going on and more people drinking alcohol and getting behind the wheel. We certainly don't recommend it. But if you have been charged or accused with a DUI, I want you to call us at 321-282-1055, because, quite honestly, I would never recommend entering this legal system, especially with something like a DUI that's going to be on your record forever, without the help of an attorney. You might have a nice state attorney who calls you and says, I promise we're going to work something out. You need someone on your side. And Steve, let's be honest here. A DUI is not like some other charges. This stays on your record forever. Explain that to me.
DUIs, you're required, if you're found guilty of a DUI, you are required to be adjudicated guilty.
What does that mean?
What that means is it's an actual conviction. There are a couple of ways that you can close cases, criminal cases in Florida. You can be convicted of it, or you can get what's called a withhold of adjudication. The withhold is you close the case out, but it does not go on your record. DUIs, you are required to be adjudicated guilty. So it is a conviction, and this is not like regular traffic offenses that will come off of your driving record in 7 years. This stays on your criminal record forever.
Wow.
If you're asked, have you ever been convicted of a crime, you would have to say, yes, I was convicted of a DUI. And also, your insurance company finds out about it, because not only is it on your criminal record, it's on your driving record as well. So your insurance company is likely to drop you, and then you have to get what's called an SR-22, which is a special form of insurance that costs
quite expensive,
3 or 4 times as much. Yeah. So this is not a regular traffic infraction or crime. This is definitely something that I would not recommend going at it alone.
Talk to me about penalties. Okay, we've all heard first DUI, second DUI, third, fourth, whatever it is. Let's talk about penalties for a moment. On a first DUI, first time you've ever been through it, you go to trial and you lose. What are the potential penalties that a person would face for their first DUI?
So the DUI is a misdemeanor of the first degree. Is a maximum punishment of either 1 year of probation or 1 year in the county jail, or any combination of those two that don't total more than 1 year. More likely than not, what will happen is you get a combination, because there are certain things that you have to do if you're convicted of a DUI. There's fines involved. Usually it's a $500 fine, but you also have to do a DUI, what they call the DUI counterattack school. Yeah, there's another program they call the Victims Awareness Program. It's kind of like the blood and gore videos that you have to watch from driver's education. It was just basically a course about making choices and how your choices affect other people. There's also, depending upon how high if you provided a breath sample, how high your breath sample is, they might require what's called an ignition lock. I'm sorry, where you actually have this a tube installed in your vehicle, and you have to blow into the tube to determine that you're not impaired at the moment, and it will lock your ignition until you do that, and then you're able to turn your car on. And I have heard from some clients that there are times where they're driving and it will prompt them to provide a sample again.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
Well, that's so that you don't get somebody off the street and say, hey, come blow in this tube.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so that's one of the penalties. There's also a 10-day impoundment of your vehicle. And so you have to, find some place to impound the vehicle. And then, there's court costs and the cost of supervision of probation.
Have you ever seen anyone go to jail for a first DUI? I mean,
not for a first.
Okay.
That's very rare.
Okay. But still, I mean, these are a lot of things to have to go through just to comply with these orders. I mean, you're obviously going to lose the license for a while. Anyway, no matter what, you're losing your license for a while.
Well, and I'm glad you reminded me. I forgot to tell you that there is also the driver's license. There's on the criminal side, there's a 6-month suspension of your driver's license. Notwithstanding the 6-month suspension of your driver's license on the administrative side, if you've provided a sample and it's above a .08, or if you refuse, then the year suspension on the administrative side. And they will run concurrently, depending upon when you enter your plea, if you do that, or when you're found guilty. So there is a possibility of overlap.
Now, a second DUI. Hopefully if you've gotten one, you've learned your lesson, you're never going to get back in the system. Because they just make it not fun. You feel like a loser. You feel like a criminal going through that process, I'm sure. And they want you to feel that way because they don't want you to do it again.
It costs so much money. And I think the feeling or the hope is that not only have you had to go through so much, but you've had to spend so much that you won't, you'll think twice about it.
Do they put them in any sort of alcohol awareness classes or anything like that?
The DUI counterattack school.
That is the counterattack school, okay. All right, now you've been through all that again, and as time heals all wounds, you forget about it, right? 3 years later, you're like, you know what, I'm so far removed from that. I'm cool now. Don't worry about it. Boom, busted again. Go to trial again, second DUI conviction. What happens now?
So if it's a second within 5 years of the first, then it's a mandatory 5-day jail sentence. And more likely than not, it's going to be more than 5 days. Again, it's a misdemeanor of the first degree again, and so it can be punished anywhere up to a year in the county jail. But again, more likely than not, you'll get some form of jail sentence along with probation. And the reason why is because the judge isn't going to monitor and make sure that you do the DUI counterattack school and that you do all the things that are required of you while on probation. He wants the county probation to do that,
right.
Monitor you so that if you don't do it, then they can violate your probation.
Sure, of course.
So that's why, more likely than not, it'll be jail plus the probation. At that point, now you're looking at a much higher amount of You're looking at a much higher amount of suspension on the driver's license. It'll
How
be
long? Give me
a year.
Okay.
A year on the criminal side. And again, it depends on whether or not you provide a breath sample or you refuse on the administrative side. But you're definitely going to have the interlock device on your vehicle. There's an impoundment on the vehicle again.